So now you have your goals. Now what? How do you go about hitting them? And question for you, did you write down some weak ass goals that you know you're going to hit anyway? Or are you actually thinking big? Are you thinking small? We're going to be diving into this and so much more on this episode on All Things Locs. So let's get to it. Dan, talk to us a little bit about goals here. How do we actually go after them?
Ooh, well, if you're like majority of people out there, you do nothing. But the right way to go about goals, after we talked about how to actually set them and understanding just, the reasoning behind it, is really you have to start taking some action. And that's where I feel like most people, they kind of fall short. It's like they set, even if it's a lofty goal, they set it and then it's just, all right, what do I do? And most people end up really just doing nothing, which is why if you look at most people we're doing this right around New Year's, which is for most people the most optimal time to do a reset and talk about goals. But then you talk to people and they have the same goals every year, right? It's like, this is going to be the year I get in shape, or this is going to be the year I get in touch with my finances or help my business. And it's, what didn't you do last year? And what you didn't do is you didn't put together an action plan.
It's a little demoralizing sometimes when you say, like, if it's you're doing that same goal year after year, and it's like, man, it's been 3 years in a row I've been having the same goal, but not hitting it.
Guilty right here. I knew when I was younger, and the one thing that kept coming up every year was, I want to get in touch with my finances. Like, I want to have a better understanding of my financial life, so to speak. And at some point, it was like, why do I have the same freaking goal for like the last what seemed like 4 years?
Yeah.
And it's because I didn't take any action on actually improving that aspect. So when I look at what I used to do versus what I do now, and the people who really also accomplish the most goals, is outside of action taking, it's really being purposeful and being intentional. And what I mean by that is actually putting things on your calendar that are going to help actually achieve your goals, right? Mm-hmm. So if I want to get in shape, can't just say I'm going to go to the gym. I'm actually putting that on my schedule. If I want to eat healthy, am I scheduling times to do meal prep or go grocery shopping? And realistically, I love the saying of show me your schedule and I'll show you your priorities, right? Because if you don't have it scheduled, here's one thing we know about human psychology. If it's not scheduled, it doesn't get done. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason if you talk to some personal trainers, they book people out weeks in advance. It's because they understand that aspect. It creates a commitment.
It does.
To actually wanting to accomplish what you said you want to do. So say really the first thing is coming up with an understanding of what actions do I need to take. So if you have your goals and you want to reverse engineer, what do I need to do to accomplish it? Whether it's a 6-month goal, a 6-year goal, you still have to understand what's the roadmap for me to get there. But then you actually have to start putting these things on your schedule and knowing what am I doing every single day that's going to get me to accomplish it. So that's where I'm at.
So to be like very, very focused, make sure you have them in front of you. And this is something that's kind of interesting to me because everyone is just so different. Some people, you can look at some studies on people's chronotype that they are just naturally wired to be early birds, and other people are like a night owl. And you know what I'm saying? So how do you go about maximizing your time and figuring out like where are you the most productive, and then having a schedule that reflects that?
Yeah, right. Because that's the other thing too, is that a lot of people would say, I don't have the time, and I'm already working what seems like 80 hours, even though it might be 40. But again, like it's really energy. How much energy you spend at work, how much time do I have to dedicate to my goals? Only you can answer that. But at the end of the day too, it's how do you maximize the time that you do have, and that's where I feel like has been a big game changer for even just me working remotely, where I'm not in an office setting and my day is not as structured. Is how do you maximize your time to actually not just hit one goal, but if you've set multiple, how do you actually do that? So it's really it's really more about having an understanding of when am I productive the most. So you mentioned early risers versus maybe a night owl.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody who's a night owl say I'm most productive from 8 o'clock at night to midnight. Then that's when you should do your peak work. Or if you say, well, I love working in the morning, that's when I'm wide awake and I'm good to go. It's like, then why are you doing bullcrap work at 8 in the morning? And then you say, well, I'll get to my really creative time like in the afternoon when you're already like slipping energy wise. Yeah. It's just, so you got to figure out how to optimize the energy and the time that you do have.
So it's like matching a little bit is what you're saying.
Yeah,
like
so
if you have to be creative, then then make sure if like I know in the morning I'm very creative, like don't do stuff that destroys my creativity. Do the things that work hand in hand with my creativity, and then is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So if you look at even in a business setting, right? It's why would you have a meeting at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning? And like that's the same business owner who says, I don't have time to work on my business. You probably do, but you have bullshit meetings that most likely don't need to get need to be done, but then you schedule them at a time where you're wasting your best time, right? So instead of saying, let me use 1 hour in the morning to work on my business and to come up with solutions and strategies, you're tying yourself up doing shit that could just wait until the afternoon. So I look at it like that. And then the other aspect too is, we've heard this understanding of the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of people still, maybe they say it, but they don't actually apply it, right? So when we understand the 80-20 rule, which is what are the 20% of things that you can do that are going to get 80% of your results, right? So those high leverage activities, what do we mostly spend our time on? It's 80% of our time to get 20% of our results. That's what most people do. Mm-hmm. And I've made that mistake. I still make the mistake, right? Instead of maybe outsourcing something, I'll do it myself. And then it's like 7 hours later, I'm like, what the hell did I just do all day? That was a stupid waste of time. So it's understanding how to leverage your time from that standpoint. And then really when you're looking at productivity, it's also a matter of how to just get the most out of yourself. So working 25 minutes straight really hard, taking a 5-minute break, then getting back into it, understanding your brain needs a little bit of a breather after about an hour and 20 minutes. So there are some things in science that greatly help us become more productive. But ultimately, it's really how do you stay focused on your goals? And it really comes down to also looking at it of what are you doing every single day?
Is there anything related to just like how different people have like a physical output, they have different thresholds.
Sure.
People have also different sleep thresholds. Are there focus thresholds with people? Is that something you've ever come across where you have some maniacs that can just lock in for like 3 hours straight, pedal to the metal, like balls to the, like they're just crazy, and not on Adderall or anything like that, just naturally. And other people, like they really do need those 25-minute sprints, 5-minute break, and something else.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything like that on your end?
Well, I mean, like, there's this concept of flow state, which is basically what you just described, right? Where that's a scenario where 3 hours seems like 10 minutes. Or, maybe you listen to music. Like, I know I've done this. I'm listening to an album, and then before I know it, the whole album's over. And I was like, wait a minute, wasn't I just on the first song? Like, that's when you get in such a peak, concentrated flow state. You can only do that for 3 hours straight. Like, that is literally just a human. So when people say, I could do it for all day, it's like, you're lying to yourself. Like
lies.
Yeah, that's
damn
where,
lies.
and that's where like understanding where science and data can help us from a standpoint of not just being more productive, but as productivity relates to your goals, is how to understand. Okay, I can do that for 3 hours a day. So what's the best 3 hours for me to just lock in and just crush whatever I'm trying to crush?
That's actually a really good point. Where I've definitely worked with people where they think that they're doing good pushing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like being drunk or really tired and be like, I'm an excellent driver. It's like, no, it's actually diminishing more and more and more. You think you're good. You think you're driving just fine, but you're really not. So it's almost having a level of discipline to pull away and recharge and then get back in, even though you might be thinking you're doing okay.
Yeah. It's just, again, there's times where you have to push it past, right? So whether you're at work and you're like, I don't have any choice. Obviously, you can't go to work and say, hey, look, I can give you 3 hours as my best, and then after that,
Yeah. Hey, Frank, for today, I'm just here for 45 minutes and I'm
like,
out
hey,
of
boss,
here.
I'm working 8 to 11 today. And it's not, and again, that's the thing, all right? It's not a matter of like the mundane work or the stuff that doesn't, like, we're talking like high brain activity. So if you're working on a book or you're working on a project,
just
those
solving
kind of
like
activities, but it's like day-to-day stuff. That's where it's like, all right, I can work a little bit beyond, but even going beyond an 8-hour day, again, you have your anomalies, like, you said, like those people who can work 10, 12 hours and still produce a high level. But for the majority of people, it's going to be 8 hours, and we know after that the performance starts to really dip down. So it's really when you're looking at, if you're one of those people like, well, yeah, my energy is shot after 8 hours, but then I'm going to work on my goals after that. Like, how's that going to really, work? And then going back to the aspect of you're not even consistent and diligent enough to put these things that you want to work on your schedule, and you're not willing to look at them every single day. that is going to be ultimately the way you start accomplishing it. But again, like that's what has definitely worked for me. I'm curious to know, like, what are your thoughts on like what is the next like bold thing that somebody needs to do? Say, I got 5 goals, or how do I go about accomplishing them? Like, what's your secret sauce?
So I really feel like there's a lot of goals and things they're going after in life that are synergistic. It's like this string attached to everything. So oftentimes when we work with people, they're always saying like, what's a big goal? It's usually around what?
Usually money.
Usually fucking money. Yeah, it's usually money. It's like, well, why? It's like, well, because if I have these resources in place, then I can hire the nanny, I can do this, I can outsource this. And it usually boils down to money. But if someone has like 5 goals, it's not very common that every single one of them is related to money. So where I look at things is I want to make sure to identify which one has the most meaning to the individual. So kind of what you mentioned a little bit earlier, like this is the same goal, this same financial goal for the last like 5 years. And it's like, how much meaning does this have to you?
Yeah.
Do you have a powerful why behind it? And so I use why. People tend to act more out of pain, like the avoidance of pain than the gain of pleasure.
For sure.
So why is what hurts you, WHY, what hurts you? What's going to actually get this thing moving? So if someone comes to me like, I have these 5 goals, Antonio, I really want to attack this. I really want to win each one. I was like, okay, if you had a gun to your head right now, if I pulled one out and point at you, you can only choose one that impacts all the others, that in doing this one thing, all these other 4 can probably fall into place. Which one would that be? And what are the benefits of doing that? Like, what are the benefits of the benefits? And really move in that direction. And then also the consequences of not doing that. So if I can just get a person hyper focused on that one thing with an extraordinary amount of meaning behind it, they're able to move mountains instead of having all these 5 different things. And it's like scatterbrain. But if we can lock in on that one and have complementary goals around it, I want to gamify it. Very similar to like when you're playing a video game. In Grand Theft Auto, there's a lot of side quests. There's a lot of video games, you have these side quests. So like, cool, make this the primary objective. We're going to move mountains, hell or high water. We're going to go after this one. And along the way, we're going to do these side quests to get this along the way. And I think it makes it fun. And how we communicate with that client on what works for them as far as motivation. And that's where we extract those whys. Like, what's the benefit of this? What's the consequence of this? Okay, so you mean to tell me that if you do this, you can have more time with your kids? You mean to tell me that if you do this, then you're going to have less fights with the woman that you love that just served you divorce papers because you're so busy and you're fucked up here? Okay, so this is ammunition for us as coaches and consultants to put right back in front of them so they can continue to fight towards their goals. So it's kind of getting this holistic point of view, but that's how I like to do it, is making sure that we emotionalize it. And that is a way we can avoid it being just another goal, another year, the same goal, the same year, over and over again. And it just feels like a really long, not Groundhog Day, but Groundhog Decade.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely thinking about, like I was saying about my own financial stuff. I'm like, it was just such a weak, nondescript, I just want to get better at my finances. Like, what does that actually? Yeah. Like, what does that even mean? It's like, so it was very weak. It was good reasons behind it, but there was no specificity. Mm-hmm. There wasn't any clarity. So really, was it important, or is it just something like that can be kicked, kind of kick the can down the road?
Yeah. It's easy to discard the goal. Like, it's easy to do and easy not to do. It's like going to the gym. Like, it's easy to go to the gym. It's also easy not to go to the gym. So if we just fill it up with a lot of meaning behind it, and it's kind of what you mentioned a little bit earlier, is having the goals in front of you, but also why the goal is there. Like, what was the reason for the goal? And so you have that specific goal. I want to double my income, or I want to do this. And it's like, why? And what happens if I don't? And if you see that all together, it triggers, it all just lines up beautifully in the brain. And you're like, all right, let's go.
So what are your thoughts on when we're talking about setting goals and taking actions for it? I find through my experience that a lot of people, they do one or two things. They either set just very, kind of like what I did, very bland, nondescript goals, or it's just, okay, I have this one goal. I want to make $10 million. Mm-hmm. And then there's nothing else. There's like really no other goal. And where I've kind of gotten some feedback from people is like, how many goals is too many? You know, it's like, does everything need to be pie in the sky kind of goal? Like, I don't know, I want to be a billionaire.
Yeah.
Versus, all right, what about the day-to-day stuff? Or So what are your thoughts on just kind of setting those, shoot for the moon kind of goals versus something that's a little bit more maybe easier to attain, but still
Yeah.
has a purpose behind it?
Yeah. So we can set a goal, and then we can also set a standard, and those two are not the same. And so when I work with somebody, I want to make sure that like this is the goal, this is the thing that's going to stretch us, this is the thing that's going to move us, and in order to hit that, we need to identify key standards that we're going to be hitting every single day. We do not negotiate. We do not negotiate on this, and that could be like you have a standard at waking up at 6 a.m. every single day. You have a standard of reading your book of scripture. You have a standard of eating. You have a standard of brushing your teeth. And we need to look at some things the same way. There's this saying that you always fall to the level of your standards. So if we can elevate a standard that's going to push us, that's going to function as guardrails on our life. So there's a standard of I don't eat after 7 p.m. if I'm trying to lose weight. There's a standard of I don't drink this way anymore. I don't do this. So now it's becoming an identity thing. And what that does is it really focuses the individual's efforts on a day-to-day basis on what they're doing, but more specifically on what they're not doing. And because it's true, man. If someone, I have like 45 goals. It's like, okay, we're going to probably forget 40 of them, right? So let's kind of look at this and evolve it where like these are the standards that we're hitting every single day. And then these are the actual goals that have specific meaning to you. And making sure that these standards bolster and increase your probability of hitting that goal. The goal is something that stretches you, something that gets you out of your comfort zone. You have to become something new. And those new standards that you are now abiding by, that's what's going to help mold you into the person that then achieves the goal.
Gotcha. So what are your thoughts then on, because you hear it a lot, and honestly, like I use it, but if you think it's trash, I'm still curious of your opinion. But what are your thoughts on setting, when we talk about goal setting SMART goals? And for those people that don't understand what that quite is, if you could maybe explain it a little bit.
Yeah, so there's kind of a school of thought on SMART goals, which is something that's measurable, right? You have a date on it, all that stuff, right? So it's very case by case, step by step. There's a lot of really great literature. There's a wonderful book called 10X is Easier Than 2X by, I think it's Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. There's also another book, I think, by it's called U Squared. It's like U and then like a number 2 by it. Neville Goddard has a lot of really great books. Those books primarily tell you that sometimes that's one of the worst things you can do. Sometimes practicality and these little step-by-step goals actually hinders you from having a quantum leap. There's so many people that, I'm sure if you just think about it for a moment, people in your own life, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be colleagues, it could be people that you hated, it could be like whatever, that one year they're literally homeless or they're having just the worst time of their fucking life. Yeah. They're just on the struggle bus. They're straight up on the struggle bus. And something clicks within them. And next time you see them, you're like, this is not the same person. And it could very well be even within like a 6-month, 90-day window where they're like, they got an extraordinary job. They started a side hustle that's been blowing up. And it's like, if they went that SMART route of this step-by-step process to achieving a practical goal, versus swinging for the stars, what it does is unlocks a level of creativity in you that I really don't know how to get to this goal. And I can reverse engineer a step-by-step goal following like the SMART protocol, which is cool. In a lot of ways, if you're really trying to avoid, if you're the mindset is like risk mitigation, I get that. But if you really want to like shoot for the stars, sometimes you want to have what I call like C-type goals. I have no clue how on God's green earth I'm going to hit this, but the meaning behind this is so huge that you're essentially bending reality to your will. As foo-foo as that sounds, everyone has some people in their life they can literally point to and be like, they locked in on something big. I know for a fact they had no clue how to do it, and they just became creative, and they followed a process that didn't really make any sense, but oh my God, did they take a leap and bound. So I like both of those, and I would look at what's your risk tolerance. If there's a particular goal that you're trying to hit within like a company, and if you mess this up, it could be kind of dire, but we want to kind of, move the chains, then SMART goals do make sense. But if you're trying to have a quantum leap in your life, I would think big. I would get into that childlike imagination that we all have, tap into that, and just think big. There's a magic in thinking big. And I think what that does is it really does pull the right players to you in your life to actually realize that vision that you have for yourself.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that is definitely, I find for a lot of people that's probably the daunting part, which is they have a large goal that they set for themselves, but then it's, all right, how do I even get started? You know, they kind of, it just becomes very overwhelming, because then, it's just, all right, there's so many things I have to do to get to that big audacious goal you're kind of outlining. So in that instance, maybe it's a business, right? And they're saying, hey, we're doing 5 million this year, but we want to get it to 10 million next year, which is a very good increase. But it seems like so daunting and almost impossible. So then you just end up doing what most people do, which is never get started. Mm-hmm. So what do you like structure out in that scenario where it's like, all right, how do we make this simplistic so it's achievable for you?
Yeah, I think oftentimes it's a mindset thing. So it's a 5 million, 10 million, like that's really hard. Like, well, compared to what? Compared to what? And it's like, compared to what you've been doing every year? What compared to the strategy? Compared to what? So they say like comparison is a thief of joy, right? Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep.
I actually think comparison is a really good thing. It gives you context. It's like, well, yeah, of course, 5 million, 10 million is going to be really, really tough if you're sitting at the same level of awareness. If you're doing the same strategies as before, yeah, it's going to be very, very daunting. I actually really think that the mindset shift is really important to give yourself a little bit of context. So when we're looking at doubling a business, I like to run people through something called like a SIPOC, which is a kind of way of identifying what that customer journey is for their company and finding out what we can do on the defensive side of the ball for business. Like, what are we doing to keep as much money as possible, maybe expand on margins, reduce any type of hemorrhaging we're seeing in a company. And then also the offensive side of the ball, like what kind of partnerships can we get into? What kind of affiliates should we set up? What kind of, what can we negotiate with vendors a little bit differently? So we can kind of expand on that. And then slowly but surely, it's like, oh, actually getting there is not that bad. I've done this a couple times with different companies where I've doubled their revenue just recently. And it wasn't in a year. It was like closer to like 90 days. And a big part of it was actually mindset. If you don't think that you're good enough to achieve that, it's hard to achieve it. But if just the team is just like, actually, this isn't really that bad, it's so much easier to go after larger clients, increase your prices, adjust any offers to achieve that goal. So I think a big part of it is actually just mindset.
Yeah, but you did mention something there that I find is really key, which is you have to do different stuff. Like, you want a different outcome, you're gonna have to. I feel like that's where a lot of people struggle. It's just like, hey, like I did exactly the same thing that I did last year, and I didn't get a different outcome. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. There's.
I mean, what do you like? You have to, if you want a different outcome, you have to take some different actions.
Yes. And so oftentimes when we run into that at businesses that are about that size, it's like they started, and usually when they get their companies around that size, that kind of 5 million mark, it's like when they're in that startup phase, it's like their hair's on fire. They're usually a multi-million-dollar headless chicken, a lot of stress, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100-hour work weeks, all that stuff. And then they finally get it kind of systemized, and they've been hovering at that revenue point for a while. And they're like, the thing you mentioned some time back on, you're just not even outpacing inflation. Like, it's getting harder and harder every single year to do business, even if your revenue is the same, even if it's a healthy $5 million revenue. And so now you're telling them, hey, we got to change some stuff. What's the knee-jerk reaction? It's kind of like, I don't know if I want to, because what if I lose everything, right? They don't want to implode what they worked so hard to build. And so changing those habits and changing how they do business, even if it's just micro adjustments, it's not even like you need to change everything. It's like, we just need to adjust a couple things here, and the vehicle that is your business will run faster and harder. But it boils down to the mindset. So when you look at other entrepreneurs where they've started and exited multiple businesses, it's like, it's not a big deal. It's like, of course, we're just at that phase where now it's stabilized and we can do that. But oftentimes you're running into really the mindset and the perspective of the owner where they don't want to lose it.
Yeah, so that actually That's a great point, because really that is something that can derail your goals, is what you're kind of describing there, right? Which is you have the ability to accomplish something, but your own headspace is going to limit it. So one of the things that we look at too is, and this was actually something I know this, but again, just the stuff that you know that you maybe ignore, or then you wonder why you're not hitting your goals, but understanding your own belief structure.
Yeah.
Before you're even launching into, let me take some actions, because, and I'm going to definitely ask your opinion on this. I look at it as, if I don't believe that I really deserve success,
Yeah.
how the hell are you going to act on your goals consistently to get you to what you think you want, when inside your own head you're like, I don't even deserve this?
Yeah, it's a double binding message.
Yeah.
In psychology, they call it a double binding message. It's like you see this a lot in like the world of relationships, where like, I deserve the best man ever, and I deserve this, and but deep down, like, you have very low self-esteem, that you don't feel like you're good enough. So what kind of message is that in the brain? Like, it's hard to hold those two thoughts, and it creates that tension. Like, I want all this money, but there's a paradigm or belief system that money always escapes me. So you're right. Business owners are just people like anyone else, and if you align your wants with your belief system, which is a hard thing to do sometimes, to truly, legitimately, genuinely have that in alignment. Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah, like I remember, and I don't want to unpack that a little bit more, but I remember even talking to you, and we both come from families where our fathers just killed themselves to provide. But we look at, as you get to a certain point of success, and this is definitely something I've struggled with, which is, how do I feel about maybe superseding the generation that came before me? Like, they killed themselves to provide, and it's like, man, like, I've had like my own beliefs where it's like, I kind of feel bad that I was given opportunities that they weren't given. And because of those opportunities, I'm going to probably have the ability to get past them. It's like that kind of, and that's like, I struggle with that a little bit. So I would almost like self-sabotage. I'd like maybe come up with like a course or something like that. And then why am I not really marketing it? Because, well, if that becomes really, it sells really well, now you're doing better than your parent who killed himself for you. And it's just having to figure that out of why I limited myself. And that's kind of like what we're talking about here.
Yeah. If anything, so I'll kind of share with a little bit of my dad, but maybe start with yours. Like, where does your dad come from? What did he do? And because just to kind of provide context to the viewers of like when we witnessed our father's work, and like when we think of work, when I think of work, I think of him. Yeah,
I mean, it's a quintessential like American story, right? Come from another country, don't speak the language, and then build something. I mean, the guy was able to build a very, very successful business. So I look at that as, and I remember when being younger, how much work, like legit work, went into it, and it was a lot. So it's being able to then, you mentioned about comparison, all right? Like sometimes it can be helpful. But this is an instance where I'm now comparing myself to, all right, what did he do? How hard did he work to even just get to his level? I'm like, man, I'm not working as hard as he is. And do I deserve it because I didn't have to struggle as much as he did? I mean, coming over to a foreign country at 17 without your parents, it's not easy. So I look at the way I grew up, super easy compared to most, definitely very easy to him compared to him. So it's very, you're looking at like how they've struggled. And that's like, well, I'm not really struggling, so do I deserve then to have more than him?
It's really interesting, like how those things come up. For my dad, he missed the memo. I don't know. So my dad came in from Mexico, and he just kept on going, and past Nevada, California, past Canada. He actually ended up in Alaska, out of all places, my dad, and he worked in the fishing industry. So my dad was a dock foreman for a while, and the commercial fishing in Alaska is not for the weak. It is backbreaking, excruciating work. I've had friends of mine, like in high school and middle school, that lost their fathers. Like it's very well known for us that like when your dad goes to work, he could die. He could be seriously like mangled and injured. To us, that's like that was very much on the forefront, that your dad could get killed. And I had some friends that their fathers were killed just literally in the fishing industry. And so my dad would stand up when he first started working like in the canneries. So all the salmon that people get, they have to slice and dice that thing in a cannery line. And and to be standing on your feet that long with your hands in like ice cold water, holding a knife, and just really quickly like filleting salmon all day, like millions and millions and millions and millions of salmon. And my dad would work anywhere between like 12 and 18 hours a day. And back then, what they would do is they would work 9 months on every single day, and 3 months off. Like that's
piece of cake.
Yeah, piece of cake. Like that is fucking brutal. And the time off is usually during the summer. So he was pedal to the metal during the winters in Alaska. So when I think like, oh man, I'm tired, and I think about my father, I'm like, this ain't nothing. And my grandparents, my grandfather, one was a blacksmith and the other one was a farmer in Mexico. And those are not easy work. So when I think of work ethic, I think of that.
Sure.
So, but also just to kind of take a step further, like where it hurt me a bit is that my concept was work meant I don't see you. Like I have to go to my job. Like whose job? Job sucks. Job is taking you away from me. I want to hang out with you. And so it was really strange because I feel like I very much had this concept of when you work, it means that you do not have quality time with your family because you're working, 12, 18-hour days, and you get home and you're just fried chicken, dude. You are so tired. You just eat and sleep. And I'm like, that's cool. Yeah. Where's my best friend? So it was very interesting. And I think that really impacted me as far as what work really means and giving it your all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's definitely the helpful side of it, but then there's also just the belief structure that we have. It's like, how can it actually derail us and really screw us up? So outside of just overall, the shitty beliefs that we all just create ourselves, congrats, like that's the human brain for you. What else would you say are some of the top things that you see that derails people from actually hitting their outcomes or hitting their goals?
Yeah, so it's a couple of them. In today's day and age, I would say that people have to do maybe some kind of dopamine detox. Right now, you're having people that are addicted to their phones or addicted to something that's a lot of screens, a lot of that. And so it's really easy to get derailed doing the scrolling and everything. So you want to look at your productive hours. So I would recommend people doing like some type of dopamine detox. Like, oh, I have all these goals, but now you have to fight this huge uphill battle against your own habits.
Yeah.
And if your dopamine and your hormones are all kind of out of whack, it makes it that much harder because your mind wants to go to the area that's the most familiar, comfort. So a dopamine detox would be good. Another one would be that kind of backs two things is your nutrition. Enough literature out there that like if you're eating a certain type of way, anxiety can kick up, depression can kick up, being lethargic just because of what you're eating. So, and the last one I think is like sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation fucks with you so much. And it has this crazy compound effect that if you lose out hours of sleep today and tomorrow and the day after, it's like it takes a while for you to recover. So those three things, I think if you're sharper on your eliminating and being more disciplined on your distractions, especially anything around screens, if your nutrition is a little bit tighter and it's good, you just feel better and you get good sleep recovery, then any goal that you have, it's that one thing you're going to need. You're going to need energy. You got to have energy for your goals. And if you just get down pat on those things, it just provides you more energy and focus to attack the goals. So those are three things that can really derail you.
No, I like that a lot. This day and age, really, focus has actually become like a commodity. Like the people who can focus the most and consistently are the ones who actually will come out on top. And there was this book by Cal Newport called Deep Work. Yeah. But he's got this math formula he created that work accomplished equals time times focus. Right? So it's how much time can you stay focused on what you're doing. That's how much you'll be able to accomplish. So if you're, to your point, it's like, I don't have the time. My thing is, all right, I want you to pick up that fucking phone of yours, and I want you to look at how many hours you're on it every single day. So someone's like, I don't have the time, and then, oh shit, I'm on my phone for 5 hours a day, which is...
I think the average is like 8.
Yeah, it's a crazy amount. And then you're like, well, how is that even possible when I'm at work for 8 hours, plus I'm driving. So it tells you how much time are you guys actually wasting on just bullshit. Like you mentioned the scrolling. It's just, the stuff that doesn't help you accomplish what you said you're trying to accomplish. So
Yeah.
Looking at how much focus you can actually maintain on a consistent basis, that's definitely critical. And then really, I would say, if I'm going to chime in and add my own like extra two on top of that would just be family and friends.
That's a big one.
Yeah, what I mean by that is, we talked last episode about having people around you who can hold you accountable and having like a support network. So whether it's a circle of, friends or you're in a mastermind or whatever it may be. But I find that a lot of people don't go for those big goals because then they're surrounded by people who want to play small and want to be fucking mediocre. And it's really, they look at it as, well, if you're growing, you're leaving me behind. And then they guilt trip people into not wanting to push the envelope. So there is this aspect of, we talk enough about the people that you surround yourself with. That's where you're going to be, right? So if you say, I want to be successful and there's good reasons behind it, and I want to be wealthy and there's good reason behind it, and then you're hanging out with people who are consistently, there's nothing wrong with being like poor, but like it's not an area that I want to be at. You're hanging out with poor people and you're wondering, why am I not, getting there? Or if you want to be married, but then you're taking your dating advice from all your friends who are divorced multiple times, it's like, what do you expect you're going to do? You got to be around people who have had success before. So there is this aspect, though, of sometimes you outgrow your friends, or maybe you have to create a little bit of distance for them, or sometimes you outgrow your family. They're not always the most supportive people. And I'm not talking personally. Even though I moved 2,500 miles away, that wasn't the reason, but some people do. It's like I have to get away from my natural environment in order to actually grow. So there is that aspect. And then I think the other big one is just not staying focused on the goals. And that was a mistake like I definitely made in the past. It's, hey, when's the last time you reviewed your goals? Like, oh, shit, I don't even know.
Yeah. It's
6 months ago?
Like they set it and forget it almost.
Yeah, exactly. Set and forget it. So if you're not looking at your goal consistently, and only you can answer how often that is, and I've gotten to a point where I'm doing it minimum 5 times a week. At least once a week. Am I dialed in on, all right, what did I really want to accomplish? Because again, we know that we fall back into bad habits. So I would just say those are my big three, man. It's just distractions, like you talked about, not staying consistently focused on the goals, and just surrounding yourself with people who are helping you elevate and grow, and having to create some distance between those that want to keep you average and limit you.
Dan, have you ever had a time where you really had to kind of hunker down on your goals? Like you mentioned having a couple of years of maybe having the same thing. What was that click? Was it like a conversation with somebody? Was it?
No, I think like, ultimately, so in terms of like hunkering down, for me, I look at that as just, are you maybe the moments of like you're grinding it out, right? Like that's hustle culture. It has its place for a short amount of time, right? It's definitely not a 24/7. I've been doing this for the last 10 years of not hanging out with friends and family, and like that's not what it's about. So there is that aspect of, all right, I have something I want to work towards. I want to get it done quickly. It's doable. I just got to put in the effort. So 100%. But then there is that aspect too of just what is the trigger, so to speak, that makes you go from, all right, I've had the same goals for the last 3 years, and now this is the year it actually got accomplished. I think ultimately it's really comes down to what are you maybe losing out or not gaining from not hitting your goals, right? So for me, where was that financial goals, definitely a big shift was getting into a serious relationship and eventually getting married. I'm like, all right, my shit's got to get way more focused because now I have somebody else that I'm like planning on spending the rest of my life with. How am I going to set that up the right way?
Family does that to you.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's the aspect too, though, of just asking good, purposeful questions. You know, what I mean by that is that's something that I've always looked at as self-reflection is very important for all of us. So it's what am I losing by not being financially sound, or what am I losing by not being healthy? And what could I gain if I was? And there is this aspect, you talked about mindset. Part of that too is understanding what would my life look like if I got all this stuff in order? Like how much better could my life be? Or how much better could my business be if we actually put things together, like create really good goals and create an action plan behind it and then execute on it? How much better? And that's, you talked about mindset, a lot of people can't even envision something better.
Yeah, it's hard to quantify.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't see myself being successful. It's like, then you won't be. Or I don't see myself being thin if I'm overweight. So part of it too is just knowing what it could look like when you have that level of success, and that's where people I think just really struggle
Yeah.
with. And that was honestly the thing that really struggled, I struggled with.
What I would say to that when I have someone that, and it's kind of rarer, but when I have someone that's kind of like that, then we just hunker down on the action. It's like, I get you can't visualize yourself maybe losing this weight. I get that you can't do this, but let's just take the action. Don't even worry about the vision, but just take the action. Just show up to the gym. Just lift the weight. Just read the book. Just do this. And I don't really, it's like, don't worry about that. Let's delete that. I wish I can go into your brain and just with a little mouse and just like delete those thoughts and just take the action. And over time, and it's probably a really short amount of time, where it'll start to happen because you're going to start seeing results. And the mind cannot help but kind of have almost like an internal compound effect, like a little measurement tool. They're like, oh wow, like I started listening to Antonio on the sales side of things. I'm closing more deals. I'm making more money. If I stay on this track, I just gave myself a 50% increase on my job selling XYZ, just because I'm just doing the thing and I didn't really believe it, or I didn't borrow our belief.
Yeah.
Borrow our belief first. There's some great people in your life that maybe see things in you that you don't with yourself. And if they're telling you that I see greatness in you, I see you doing so much better than where you are now, why would you hunker down on your thoughts? Maybe borrow theirs. And I think that can help if you're ever in that situation, is maybe just doing that.
I like that a lot. Totally random, but I was like just watching a movie, and the guy it was like a father and son, and they were in some trouble, and the son very different than the dad. Dad's very alpha, and he's like said the same thing to the son. It's just borrow me, like borrow what I would do, and borrow my thoughts to help you do what you're not naturally maybe gifted at. So it's kind of like the same thing, like just utilizing other people's thoughts to help you start pushing yourself. And then I think the other thing would just be creating the identity and really identifying yourself as the person that you're going to be, right? So if it's, I'm trying to quit smoking, I'm a non-smoker. Like you just identify yourself as that. Or if I'm just starting out in the gym, it's, I'm a healthy person. All right? So that identity helps kind of start feeding you those emotions or those thoughts that maybe you're lacking, as well as borrowing them from other people who are really supporting you along your journey.
Yeah. It's really interesting. So I'm a parent. I got 3 kids. Last night I was right now all 3 of my kids are sick. They can't breathe. They're like filled with mucus. It's like every time they sneeze, it's like blah. Nice. It's like a America's Funniest Home Videos where all this booger just comes out. So they're struggling right now. And every 45 minutes last night I was up. Just taking care of them, holding them. I swear I was going to give one away. I was like, this kid's crying way too much. It was like my wife and I, like our patience were like, we were so razor thin. And I don't know how to be like the best parent. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. And so I'm trying to just do the best I can with what I have. And if I come at it from a place of love, good intentions, work ethic, patience, like that's the same kind of mindset here. Is like I don't know about the goals. I don't know about it, but just do it anyway, and do it with that attitude where it's self-love, it's having good meaning behind it. And I think along the way what you'll find is that there's going to be a level within your own heart, within your own mindset that you haven't really discovered yet, that you kind of have to go through the suck. I'm like running on 3 hours of sleep, but I still have a job to do. I still have things to do. And if that's not entrepreneurship, I don't know what is. That's one of the closest things that you get, where you have these responsibilities, you have these things, you got to do the best, you got to push yourself, because everyone around you is only wins. And if I push myself, then I'm able to offer more and come from this place of abundance that my twin sons and my daughter and my wife and everyone else get to benefit. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's what moves society. That's what gets people to innovate, solve problems. And I think the people that benefit are, our neighbors, our clients, our friends, our family. So get uncomfortable. You know, that we're not designed to just kind of sit here and eat potato chips on the couch. We're here to kind of conquer and do shit. So do your part. Do your part. We're all counting on it. And if you need help, you know, we're here for you.
Yeah. See, you just admitted too. You didn't read all the baby books. That's what it comes down to. That's why you're struggling.
It's usually bullshit where it's like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
But no, I mean that's a great, you know, nice bow on this episode is have purpose, take action. You know, just start. Don't wait for that perfect time because there is no perfect time.
Yeah, no such thing.
No, limit your distractions. Stay focused. Be consistent. Know what you want. Look at it every single day. And these dreams will start becoming reality. So glad you guys were able to join us on this episode of All Things Locs. Look forward to catching you next time. Like this episode, share it with all your friends. Check out the previous episode if you need our goal setting template as well. It can help you out, create a massive 2025.